Ice Cube's Big Three is back for Season 2. The Big Three is a professional 3-on-3 basketball league that features former NBA stars like Amari Stoudemire, Nate Robinson, Chauncey Billups, Baron Davis, Carlos Boozer, Mike Bibby, Meta World Peace, and many, many more. Get your tickets at big3.com/tickets or tune in live every Friday night on Fox or FS1. That's right, this year the games are on live. Big Three, we're changing the game. Welcome to another episode of the HoopsHype Podcast. My name is Alex Kennedy, and joining me today to discuss the LeBron James decision is my HoopsHype colleague, Frank Urbina. Frank, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. This is a special edition breaking news emergency podcast because LeBron James is a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. He signed a 4-year, $154 million deal with a player option in year 4. It just became official tonight. He agreed to the terms. What are your thoughts on this deal? We're going to get into, specific details in a bit, but just starting off, were you surprised that it came so early? Were you surprised that it was LA? What was your initial reaction?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised it was LA because all the speculation recently had been that it was going to be the Lakers. I was just surprised it came so early. I mean, free agency didn't even open 24 hours ago. People, I know Wendy was saying that he thought it was going to be a relatively quick decision, but even so, no one thought it was going to be in the first day. He was saying it was going to be within the first 3 or 4 days, like before the 4th of July. So that's what caught me off guard for one. And then after like the initial shock of, oh, wow, LeBron's actually going to the Lakers. Like, this is still kind of crazy, even though it was expected. Then that's when I realized personally that it was a 4-year deal, player option on year 4. But even so, that's 3 years with the Lakers. That's like a long-term commitment. He's not going anywhere. Yeah, I don't know. It's still totally shocking. Even though it is the Lakers and it was expected a little bit, I was still basically floored, to be honest.
Yeah, I think everyone in the media kind of prepared us for the Lakers, and there was a little bit of a, sway toward Philly today because Rich Paul went and met with the 76ers, and there was some talk about that, that the Sixers could be aggressive and try to get Kawhi Leonard. They could possibly get both guys. That was somewhat of a talking point today, but now the first thing that jumped out to me when I think it was Woj and Shams both notifications on my phone. They both got it right around the same time. I don't know who got it first, but the 4-year deals what really jumped out to me. Like you said, it's a 3-year deal with a player option in year 4, but this isn't something LeBron does. We see him sign these 1-and-1 deals, and he wields that power. He likes having that free agency power, the ability to say, look, make the decisions I want, make the moves I want, let me have input, because he could leave at any time. And he's done that whether it was in Miami toward the end, in Cleveland. It's surprising that he's going to enter a new situation and not be able to hit free agency for 3 years, 3 full seasons, guaranteed. That's surprising to me. But I think it shows that he wants to be in LA for a while now, or for the rest of his career. His family loves it there. They spend their off seasons there. They have the homes there. So it doesn't come as a surprise that it's LA. It was a long-term factor. The fact that he took, a 4-year deal with a player option, that was pretty shocking to me. Now, do you think he should have
I just wanted to add quickly, and this isn't just shocking to you or me. Even last night on The Jump with Rachel Nichols, even Windhorst himself, I remember him clearly saying it was going to be a 1-and-1 deal that LeBron signed, even if it was with the Lakers. So I'm pretty sure this caught basically everyone by surprise, because if anyone's connected with LeBron's cap, it's Brian Windhorst,
Yeah, you're right about that. I think most people thought it'd be 1-and-1. Yeah, I think I didn't hear anyone saying he would sign a 4-year deal. And I think the way he announced it too, the official announcement was through Clutch Sports Twitter account. They tweeted out almost like an email. It didn't come over uninterrupted, which is kind of surprising because Maverick Carter, he even come out and said, oh, if LeBron James had a free agency decision to make these days, we would do it over uninterrupted 100%. And, he was very adamant it would be over uninterrupted. So I'm kind of surprised that it wasn't over, the media platform that he and Maverick Carter co-founded and own. They founded that in 2014, shortly after LeBron James made his decision to go back to Cleveland. And it's because he teamed up with Lee Jenkins. That experience gave him the idea for, the social media platform. So I'm surprised it wasn't on uninterrupted, but, let's talk about the actual decision. When you look at just the basketball fit, I know this comes down to more than just basketball because, he wanted to think about his family and the off-court implications and his businesses and all that. But when you look at LA over Philly just from a basketball standpoint. Do you think this was the best move for him? Because I talked to a few players that were saying they feel like Philly would have been a better fit.
I mean, that does make sense just because their young core seems a little bit readier to compete right away because they have Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, obviously. And while the Lakers also have a young core, I mean, we ranked them on HoopsHype the best young cores in the NBA, and I believe the Lakers finished fourth. They're still not, I don't think they're ready right away to contend with the Warriors, with the Rockets, with the big dogs out west. So yeah, I mean, I think what sold them on LA more than like how the team is currently construed, besides like getting to live in Los Angeles in a huge market, is the fact that they have a lot of cap space and they have a lot of assets they can move around to land some other really good players. I mean, we'll get into this eventually, I'm sure, but they could still trade for Kawhi Leonard. That could happen tonight for all we know as we're recording. I mean, let's hope not, but it could happen really soon.
Yeah.
They could, I mean, they gave up some money by re-signing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to a 1-year, I believe, $12 million deal. So that might take them out of the running for a DeMarcus Cousins or another big name free agent without a trade. But let's say, just because they're ready to compete now, let's say they decide to trade away a first-round pick, Brandon Ingram, and the rest of Luol Deng's contract, then they'll have plenty of room to add another huge piece this summer without even having to trade for Kawhi. I mean, I'm not saying they should do that. Like, that would be maybe a little reckless, but the chance is there for them to land another huge piece this summer, if not two.
Yeah, and that's what the players did point out. They said, look, if he wants to win a championship this year, it doesn't make the most sense. I talked to two different guys that were both saying this, and a third was kind of on the fence about it. But the two guys were saying he can't win a championship this year, but he probably thinks he can recruit long-term to Los Angeles. He looks at next year's free agent class. He looks at the Kawhi Leonard situation, and that is true. That makes a lot of sense. You know, guys want to be in LA because of the history there. They're a marquee franchise that's always on national television, that, you know, you get tons of marketing opportunities and exposure from being in LA. And now with LeBron James there and this young core, you know, you can pretty much guarantee they're going to be at least a playoff team and probably a significant contender. So that's where a lot of guys are going to want to go there, and we're actually already seeing that right now. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope re-signed on a 1-year, $12 million deal. He is a Clutch Sports guy as well, in addition to LeBron James. And now another guy we're hearing is Nerlens Noel. He is also a Rich Paul client, and they have their other free agents too, guys like Brook Lopez, Isaiah Thomas, Channing Frye. So let's talk about what the Lakers should do next. We'll get into Kawhi Leonard in a second, but when you look at other free agent moves, do you think they should go after a guy like Nerlens Noel?
Nerlens would make some sense just because he's still, I believe, 24 years old.
Yeah.
And I mean, the last 2 years were absolutely brutal for him. There was a trade from Philly to Dallas. And then when he first arrived in Dallas, he was okay. But then I'm pretty sure he didn't finish a year in the rotation. I'm not sure if that was an injury or not. And then this year, obviously, as we all know, it was a disaster for him. But his first 2 years in Philly were extremely impressive. He was averaging like around approximately like 12 points, 8 boards, a couple of assists, over a block and a half, and over a steal and a half, just around there. And I mean, those are freakish numbers, you know, and he's a great rim protector. He has the makings of like some sort of a semblance of a mid-range jumper. He can shoot a little bit. So maybe if you weren't a Rich Paul client, Nerlens Noel, that is, I could see him maybe, I don't know, getting a minimum somewhere, if not having to head like to China or something. But the fact that he's part of Clutch Sports with LeBron probably gives him another shot to prove himself with the Lakers. And I think it'd be a worthwhile gamble because he's still pretty young. You're going to get him super cheap. And as we've seen, LeBron makes everyone a million times better. So imagine what LeBron was able to pull with like a J.J. Hickson back in the day, or eventually with like a Chris Anderson in Miami, and then with the Tristan Thompson in Cleveland. He turned those guys into really excellent contributors. If you could do that with someone with Nerlens Noel's skill set, that would be kind of a scary player when you think about it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just factoring in LeBron and how he improves his teammates, it does make a lot of sense. And there was talk even last year, I believe it was last year, from Mike Fisher, the Dallas reporter, who said that Nerlens and LeBron were talking about possibly teaming up. So this has been something that, because they are both under the Clutch Sports umbrella, they've talked about this for a bit too, about being on the same team. So I do think, you know, it's a possibility. Now, will he start? You know, who knows? I doubt that. But I think he could go there and try to, you know, revamp his career. It does make sense. And I don't think the timing is a surprise here. The fact that you have LeBron James come to his decision, I believe 15, 20 minutes later, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope announces his, and then I think 5 minutes later, Nerlens Noel basically said he narrowed down his list of teams. The Lakers are one of the 4 teams, or one of the 3 teams that he's looking at. So I'm not sure that's a coincidence. I think usually we've seen that in the past too, where an agent will represent the team's star player and then have quite a bit of influence and steer some of their role players and, other free agents toward that team. We saw that in Cleveland with LeBron, surrounded by Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith. Another example I can think of is the New York Knicks when they had Amari Stoudemire. They brought in other Happy Walters clients like Iman Shumpert and then Sean Williams, and, they had guys at the end of the bench that were Happy Walters clients. Especially a guy like LeBron James caliber, you want to keep him happy, and part of me wonders if some of these things were decided beforehand, or at the very least, if they give him a look, that could definitely be a possibility. When you look at the other Laker free agents, Brook Lopez, Isaiah Thomas, Channing Frye, who are some guys that you would, try to bring back if you're the Lakers, or would you bring back all of them if you can?
Let's be honest, definitely not Isaiah Thomas, just because I don't think the fit worked at all. Basketball, I don't know how they got along in the locker room, but basketball-wise, the fit was a disaster in Cleveland between him and LeBron.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure his career in Los Angeles, unfortunately, is over, which sucks. I mean, this guy was going to get a huge contract a year ago, and then the injury, and now it looks like he's going to get, if at most, like the mid-level worth $8.6 million. I could definitely see Channing Frye coming back just because he works so well with LeBron. I don't think Channing is really a difference maker against a Rockets or a Warriors team that switches so much. We saw when he was still in Cleveland how well the Warriors would be able to neutralize him because they have he doesn't really post up down low and they can stick their wings on him. But regardless, against most other teams in the league, Channing Frye next to LeBron is a force, floor spacing 5 who's won a championship, super reliable, experience with LeBron. Their pick and pop game is excellent. So between those two, definitely I could see Channing Frye coming back, and that would be it would be great for him to return. And the other one was Brook Lopez, I believe. And yeah, I could see, he could be like a better version of Channing Frye just because not as good of a shooter, but he also shoots threes and he's a way better rim protector. You could see him in LeBron, and he's a really good roll man, which Channing Frye is not. So Brook Lopez with LeBron would actually be a lot of fun too. I could see him coming back as well. Maybe not on a huge deal, but maybe on a 1-year, $8 million deal. That would make some sense as well.
Yeah, I think Channing Frye, I'd be surprised if he didn't come back to the Lakers, just because, like you said, he has the relationship with LeBron, plays well with LeBron, and also this Lakers organization wants him around the young guys. He's an amazing locker room presence, and, every team in the NBA wants to have him around their young players. He's that good of a veteran to have. So you factor in what he can do next to LeBron, the existing relationship there, and what he brings from a locker room standpoint. It just makes sense for him to come back. I agree about Isaiah Thomas. It really sucks what's kind of happened to him, going from talking about a max deal and the Brinks truck with the Boston Celtics to everything that happened in Cleveland. It's just been a really rough stretch for him. That's really unfortunate. I'm hoping he can try to sign, a 1-year deal somewhere and try to, put up big numbers and see if that can lead to a better, payday next summer. But it really does suck to see, what's happened to his free agency stock. And then Brook Lopez, I agree with you. I think he could be a really interesting fit next to LeBron James. And if I'm the Lakers, I'm definitely trying to get Brook Lopez back. I think he could be an interesting difference maker there. And the thing that I find pretty interesting is that there's not a ton of teams out there that are contenders that have cap space. We talked about this at HoopsHype, and we've had a number of articles. We talked about it on other podcasts, but when you look at the teams that have significant cap space, most of them are rebuilding. A lot of them already have centers. So that's where, guys like Brook Lopez or Nerlens Noel that we're talking about could come a bit cheaper or not have a ton of other options. And that could lead them to take a 1-year deal possibly with the Lakers and then see what happens next summer when the salary cap goes up and more teams have money. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next for LA. I do think you're going to see more veterans come in as they try to, win now. And a big factor in that is the Kawhi Leonard trade talks. Do you think that this makes it should the Lakers be more aggressive in their trade talks for Kawhi Leonard, or should they back off thinking, okay, we're probably going to get Kawhi Leonard next year when he's a free agent? How would you approach this?
It's a good question, just because if you wait a year, you're going to get him. Kind of thing. But if you wait, there's also the risk of a team like Philadelphia, who still has a lot to play for, or maybe even the Celtics. You risk them coming in and making a great offer to the Spurs for them. And the Spurs are going to be a little more stingy trying to trade him to the Lakers than they would be to a team in the East. So I don't know. It's honestly a great question. I think I would still be aggressive in trying to trade for him. And obviously I don't know this, but I feel like maybe LeBron agreed to come to the Lakers so quickly because they was kind of a promise that they would try to revamp the team around them right away.
Like Kevin Love for Andrew Wiggins type deal.
That exactly like that. And this would be, I mean, Kevin Love is a fantastic player, but this would be Kawhi Leonard, a top 5 player when healthy, you know? So yeah, I honestly think that they're going to make a move for Kawhi pretty soon. Just because, I mean, think about it this way too. Like the guy that they don't want to get rid of is Brandon Ingram, but how well would his game really fit next to LeBron? He's not much of a spot-up shooter, you know. He kind of needs the ball in his hands to like really contribute well. He's not much of a cutter yet. I know he's improving, and I'm a huge Brandon Ingram fan. I wrote about him before last season. I thought he was going to break out this year, and he basically did. The analytics don't love him, but he had a solid season according to the eye test at least. But if you lose Brandon Ingram, you might be more willing to lose a Brandon Ingram if it means you're getting a Kawhi Leonard in return now, especially because, I mean, a team with Kawhi and LeBron, I don't want to say that they would easily win the West, but because the Warriors and the Rockets still exist, but they would be up there. They would probably be a top 3 team in the West, if not even higher, you know? So I could see them making one for Kawhi, and I think they should make one soon.
Yeah, I think they're going to become more aggressive and try to get Kawhi as well. I mentioned this on Twitter. We saw on the jump the other day, or actually last night. Man, it does not feel like last night. It feels like a few days ago. But last night, Woj was saying that the Lakers haven't been very aggressive in their trade talks with San Antonio, that, you know, they wanted to see what happened with LeBron first, and they really haven't, you know, they haven't really pursued Kawhi that hard. Now with LeBron there, and with the long commitment you have from LeBron too, I think you're not going to be developing these young guys over the next few years. I think the expectations just increased drastically, and they need to be in win now mode, because that's what LeBron basically demands of teams when he arrives, you know, like it or not. So that's where I think, like you said before, they may not have wanted to part with those young pieces, or, you know, a young piece and picks or whatever it is, because they wanted to have that in case LeBron didn't come. But now LeBron's there, they're in win now mode. You know, if other free agents are going to be coming, I could see them pulling a trigger now and becoming more aggressive in these San Antonio talks. And look, you know, if they don't land him, yeah, Kawhi can come in a year. There's obviously some risk in that. We saw Paul George talk about being hell-bent on coming to the Lakers and didn't even take a meeting with them in free agency, even though he grew up a Laker fan, and it was a similar situation where he was unhappy and all that, but then obviously got, you know, traded to a rental. If the Spurs trade Kawhi Leonard to a rental, you could see a Paul George-like scenario. The big difference, obviously, is the LeBron James commitment. Paul George made his decision before LeBron James committed to LA. So did the Lakers become more attractive to Kawhi Leonard next summer whenever they have LeBron James committed for multiple years? That could be the case, but it is still a risk. Whereas if you trade for him, you don't have to worry about that. And it seems like, you know, he'd be willing to re-sign a long-term deal. That's what every indication has been, that he wants to be with the Lakers and he'll re-sign there. So there's not too much risk involved if you trade for him. So I think you're going to see that happen. You kind of touched on this briefly, but if they do have LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, let's say they bring back... Well, actually, let's touch on this really quick. Before we get into how good this team can be, do you think Lonzo Ball is going to be with the Lakers for the next, you know, when the season starts and long term, or does this change Lonzo's trajectory? Because, you know, we had the LeBron James, LeVar Ball beef whenever they were, I believe LeVar Ball said something about LeBron James' kids, and LeBron didn't like that. But then again, it seems like at times he's kind of been nice to Lonzo and, you know, spoke highly of him. So do you think we're going to see Lonzo stay with this team, or could you see them parting ways with Lonzo?
I think he'll be back next year, just because I know this has been a kind of thrown around take the last couple of days, but I really do think he would be a good fit next to LeBron, because his game while he was in UCLA and as a prospect was always to be a point guard who moves the ball around, who can cut, who can shoot when he's open. The shot isn't falling yet, but and also, I mean, well, to be fair, the fact that he got injured and he's going to lose a year or a summer of development does kind of hurt. But peak Lonzo is kind of the perfect point guard to have around LeBron. I think they would want to keep him now. And also the fact that the likeliest trade to come up soon would be the Kawhi trade to the Spurs. And I mean, can anyone see Greg Popovich really putting up with LeVar Ball's antics for like more than a day before going crazy, you know? I don't think he's going to be getting sent to the Spurs. I do think Lonzo will be on the team next year, and I think he's going to really it's going to be good for him to play with a guy like LeBron, obviously, just because he's the best player in the world. He makes everyone better. So I think he's going to have a huge year. I think he's going to return to the Lakers next year, and I think he's going to have a huge season for sure.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And trading him now, whenever he's coming off this injury and had missed a number of games during his rookie year, his stock's going to be lower than it would normally be because of the durability concerns. So that's another thing to keep in mind too. If the Lakers do want to move on from him, you're not going to get what you typically would for a guy that was a number 2 overall pick and had a strong rookie year. That's going to play. Not only is the LeVar Ball stuff going to play a factor, but his injury concerns will play a factor too if they do try to trade him. One thing I just saw that I want to touch on, I know we kind of moved on from other moves the Lakers can make, but Sporting News mentioned Chris Bosh as a possible teammate that the Lakers could try to land, a LeBron James teammate, former teammate. You obviously got to see him up close in Miami, and his situation is so unique because he needs to find a doctor that's willing to clear him because he was sidelined with a blood clotting issue. And the rule here, for people who don't know, the NBA will not let you play if you're on blood thinners, which is the medication you have to take if you have a pulmonary embolism, which, a blood clot in your lungs. And you can't be off of the medicine either because then you're at risk to get another blood clot in your lungs. So he kind of finds himself in a difficult position where the medication that he needs to take on a daily basis, he can't play in the NBA on it because it thins your blood. So if you take an elbow to the face or get cut, you have a significant bleeding issue. You could bleed out. And then if you are on that medicine, you could get another blood clot. So this is really difficult for Chris Bosh. I understand his frustration. He wants to come back. His career was kind of ripped away from him, and that's always difficult. But and for people who don't know, if you get a pulmonary embolism and it doesn't get treated, or even if you do get treatment, as soon as you notice symptoms, it can kill you. This is a life or death type of thing, and that's why the NBA has these rules. So do you think Chris Bosh is a realistic target for the Lakers, or is that just someone that's being brought up now because of the connection to LeBron?
Yeah, definitely the latter. I think it's just speculation from not the most reliable sources. I don't think anyone would clear him to play. I don't think he should play. I mean, just being a Heat fan when I was growing up and stuff, and Chris Bosh coming over, I love the guy. Like, he's one of my favorite players ever. He was always blamed when things went wrong. He never complained about it. He became a great 3-point shooter. He adapted his game to play around 2 superstars in Wade and LeBron. So it would be amazing if he could still play. I think the Miami Heat's outlook would have changed over the last few years if Chris Bosh was still healthy. I mean, they were a game away from the Eastern Conference Finals in 2016 with Joe Johnson on the team, with Dang, with Wade. If Bosh had still been around, they might have made the Eastern Conference Finals. We might have actually gotten a Wade versus LeBron matchup in the playoffs, which would have been amazing. It sucks what happened to him. It kind of makes me sad when I hear him make comments publicly about, like, not, I don't know, I don't want to speculate. He just didn't seem like he was still at peace with, like, how his career ended, which is understandable. I mean, when you're a professional athlete, sports are your life and stuff, and it's all you know. So I think he was trying to figure out how to make himself happy. I think he was getting into computers, into playing guitar and stuff. I wish he could play. I don't think he should. I don't think he will. If he could, I mean, in a perfect universe, if he was somehow completely healthy from the blood cuts, he would be amazing on that team. He would be amazing on any team. Imagine him like on a minimum deal on the Warriors or something instead of JaVale McGee. He would be freaking incredible.
He's the perfect big man for today's NBA.
Exactly. And he's kind of one of the guys that kind of started the transition to, like, the floor spacing 5. He made all those Heat wins possible, all those championships possible. Without him, I don't know, LeBron and Wade would have needed a really good third player. I think he was the perfect one for them. It sucks. I don't think we'll be seeing him in the NBA ever again, which is just so sad. It is sad.
I mean, and I know it's worth noting he was at a Lakers practice and was around the organization. I believe it was last year because he has a relationship with Rob Pelinka, and so he was basically around kind of shadowing. And I don't know if that was him showing interest in a front office role eventually, or just trying to be around the team. I don't know if he's interested in coaching, but he was around the Lakers last year. So there are a couple of ties here. There are the Lakers ties, the LeBron ties. But yeah, it's not worth it. It's so risky. It's not worth it. If you're talking about, playing basketball again, which I totally understand he wants to do, but if you're talking about life or death, there's no way a doctor's going to clear him to go out in that court. And it's so risky and not worth it. So I hope he can find peace and, find a post-basketball career path that makes him happy, because clearly he's still searching for that, but I don't think it's worth it. And I'd be surprised if we saw him on a court again, which, like you said, it sucks, but that's just, when you break down the way the medicine works and his specific medical condition, I just don't see a way for him to play again, unfortunately. Now, let's talk about how good this Lakers team can be. Let's focus without the Kawhi Leonard stuff right now, because we don't know what would be in a Kawhi Leonard trade or if that's even going to happen. For all we know, the Spurs could drag this thing out and say, we're going to wait until the trade deadline to make a decision and see if we can try to repair this relationship with Kawhi. We don't know what they're going to do. So let's look at the team they have now. They brought back Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They have some more money to be able to try to re-sign their own free agents and especially bring in other guys, bring in some role players, because they could go over the cap to bring their own guys back. When you look at this team and the way they're currently constructed and some of the players you've kind of mentioned in this podcast as possibilities for them, can they compete with a team like Golden State or Houston, or is it going to take keeping that cap flexibility for next summer and then trying to hit big in the 2019 free agent class?
I think part of the reason a 4-year deal with a player option on year 4 was signed was because LeBron was going to give them a chance to build a team around him and not necessarily force him to do it right away. So I think the team right now is not ready to compete against the Warriors or even the Rockets, just because those teams have already been together longer. They have multiple top 10, top 5 players as opposed to the Lakers, who have just one. We can't get into the Kawhi stuff, or we're not going to get into the Kawhi stuff again. If they landed him, it would change a lot. Just Kuzma should be a good floor spacer around LeBron. I like Brandon Ingram as a player a lot. I don't love his fit next to LeBron, so I don't know, that might not be great. I think it's going to take a little bit of patience, which Lakers fans are not known for. I mean, when they
no kidding. Sorry, yeah, Laker fans are listening to this. You guys aren't very patient. Everyone, you can admit that. Be self-aware. Come on.
For sure. I mean, when they missed on Paul George last night, for example, I mean, some of the vitriol sent to Paul George from Lakers fans was just startling, to be honest. But yeah, so they're not the most patient bunch, but this is going to require some patience. Landing LeBron is a huge first step. Who knows? Kawhi might be next. They might find a way to land the Cousins if they can get out of the Luol Deng money. So for all we know, they could have a different team by the time the season rolls around. But as presently construed, I don't see them competing with the likes of the Warriors or the Rockets. But like I said, it's going to take patience, and eventually they will have a super stacked team. Because if LeBron thought he was going to go there to play just with the current group they have now, I think it would have been a little tougher to convince him to sign on the dotted line.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he has to understand the team's long-term plans, and that's why he's willing to give them, 4 years with that player option. It only makes sense.
And I think he does understand, because he did sign the long-term deal. He knows what he's getting into. It could happen right away, but it could also take some time, which is fine. Because for LeBron James just to land his signature, think about it. LeBron James is a freaking Laker. It's insane. I think it's going to take some time, but I think it'll be well worth it by the end of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, it is LeBron's MO and to kind of do this and go to a team that has young players. So there's a wide open championship window, and then they're going to make win now moves to try to surround him with talent. And then, he'll be able to recruit some players to join him and all that. And then you're going to see that he wants to play with other superstars, and that's where, maybe a Kawhi Leonard trade's already in the works, like the Kevin Love trade was. That was something that was being discussed for a while leading up to, LeBron James's decision as well, because Andrew Wiggins, there was questions about whether he'd be there long term or not. So maybe that is something that's already in the works. Let's throw that out there then, because I agree with you. I think if they don't make any moves, they're going to have a tough time competing in the Western Conference, and, getting to the Western Conference Finals isn't even guaranteed because Houston and Golden State are so good. So let's say they do add Kawhi. Just quickly, do you think they would be able to beat Houston or Golden State? Because even still, I don't see a way they beat Golden State. That team is stacked. Houston, maybe. Trevor Ariza was such a big piece for them. Losing him is going to hurt them a lot, I think. Clint Capella, obviously still a free agent. We don't know what's going to happen there, but I'd imagine they'd lock him up on a long-term deal. Do you think they could beat Houston?
Maybe. I do think the Trevor Ariza loss was a huge one. I know he's a very streaky shooter, and Rockets fans were still a little upset with him for the Game 7 performance, where I think he shot like a John Starks level bad. They could beat Houston if they land the Kawhi. Just with LeBron, I don't know. And to be fair, we still don't know what the Rockets are going to do. They still have their mid-level exception they can use. They could still land like a Lance Stevenson or a Tyreek Evans to kind of help fill out the wing. it's going to be tough for them this year. If they land Kawhi, it's going to be very tough to beat the Warriors. I mean, you are landing 2 top 5 players, and when they're locked in, LeBron and Kawhi are also could be 2 of the best wing defenders in the league, as on top of their insane offensive gifts. So it would definitely be interesting. They would make it interesting for sure. A fun little California, Golden State, Los Angeles would be a lot of fun. But yeah, it's going to be tough for them just because the Warriors are so fortunate they were able to land Kevin Durant on top of having Curry and Draymond and Clay and Iggy. People forget about Iggy too. It's going to be tough for anyone to unseed the Warriors, but you never know what could happen. I mean, a minor injury and someone misses 2 games, and then Kawhi and LeBron would easily be enough to make it to the finals, But as presently construed, it's going to depend on what the other moves they make are on top of Kawhi, because I'm sure they would like to land maybe a couple guys on the minimum who could do some damage, like how the Heat would land Shane Battier 1 year, and then the next year they landed a Ray Allen. We could see that happening with a Jamal Crawford, for example, or someone else. So I mean, it's still too early to say, but it's going to be hard for sure, and it's going to depend on how the rest of their role players fill out going forward.
Yeah, for sure. The next moves are going to be so important, but it's really hard to bet against LeBron in a 7-game series. We always said that with Cleveland. No matter who's around him, he's going to make things competitive for the most part, and he's going to elevate the player of his teammates. So that's where it's going to be interesting to see what he can do with these young guys and, how much better he can make them. Now, I want to wrap up on this note. Luke Walton is someone that, has been developing these young guys in Los Angeles, and before that, he was pretty much regarded as the top assistant on the market in terms of head coaching jobs. He had the time in Golden State where he coached that team as the interim head coach when Steve Kerr was out. He did a fantastic job there, filling in. And he did a really good job managing egos there and, relating to his players and building relationships with guys. Do you think he's ready for, what's going to come now, where the team can't just develop the young guys and get better each year? They need a huge jump, in terms of their win total. Expectations are going to go way up. It's going to be harder to manage egos. LeBron James, we know with his coaches, he wants input and he needs to have a good relationship with you. Otherwise, you could be on the way out. So is Luke Walton ready for this, you think?
I think he's a good coach. I mean, he's used to having really high expectations just because of his time with the Warriors. So that was kind of good practice for him. I think it's going to be up to if he can survive the first initial wave of not controversy, but kind of the first time the team struggles, he's going to have to survive that.
All because the criticism.
Exactly. The first wave of criticism is what he's going to have to survive. Thank you. It happened with Eric Spoelstra when the big three first got together. They started 9-8, and that was the biggest storyline in the NBA for a week. There was the video of Spoelstra angrily calling a timeout and LeBron walking to the bench, and then it looked like he kind of shouldered him.
Yeah, right. I remember that. That was huge.
Yeah, he certainly didn't get out of the way, that's for sure. So, I mean, and then Spoelstra survived that. He ended up implementing this pace and space offense, and now he's widely regarded, rightfully so, as one of the best coaches in the NBA. So who knows? He's going to have to survive the first wave of criticism for sure, because there's going to be a little bit. They're going to hit a bump in the road, and I'm guessing early, especially if they can't land the Kawhi Leonard right away. Just a young core plus LeBron. There's going to be some drama in the beginning, plus LeVar Ball. I kind of hope Luke Walton's. I'm sure he is. I mean, his dad was a superstar in the NBA, a Hall of Famer. I'm sure he's been around the NBA his whole life. I just kind of hope he's ready for this. It's gonna be coming from all sides now. He's in the biggest market in the league, or one of the two between the Knicks or the Lakers, or New York City or Los Angeles. He has LeBron James on his team, and if that wasn't enough, he has freaking LeVar Ball and Lonzo Ball on the team. It's a lot to deal with. It's going to be tough, but I think he will survive. I think he's a good head coach, and I think eventually it'll be okay. It's going to be a little bumpy in the beginning for sure.
I agree. I mean, that's why I asked, because you look at the situation, and it doesn't get much harder than that. LeBron James comes with all of his, own difficulties and, ego, and the expectations that come with LeBron are insane for not only his head coach, but his teammates in the front office, and everyone needs to make sure they're bringing their A game every day, no matter what they're doing, because he expects that from everyone, and he'll criticize you or, want to make a move or a change. So we've seen that before. But then, as you mentioned, LeVar Ball thing, the fact that Laker fans, they want championships. That's what they celebrate there. And everyone's made that very clear. If it's almost championship or bust if you have a talented roster, a roster that's good enough to compete for championships. And I do think, like you said, the fact that he was in Golden State, that definitely helps him. That was great experience for him. I think the fact that he had these LA expectations, if this was his first year in LA, I'd be worried about him. But the fact that he kind of dealt with these Laker expectations, dealt with LeVar Ball and the Lonzo Ball circus, last year, that does help him, I think. So we'll see if he's prepared. It definitely is going to be a change for him, but I think he can handle it. I think he's going to be ready for it. We'll see. Frank, thank you so much for joining me.
I just wanted to add one more thing.
Go ahead.
He was on some great Lakers teams in the past too, so he's used to being in the center of controversy too. So maybe that'll help him out as well. He was on the 2004 team that ended up had all the expectations with having Gary Payton and Karl Malone going for the 4th title in a row against the Pistons with Phil Jackson as the head coach. So that was pretty crazy too. So I mean, just from his secondhand experience there, that might help him out this year too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, when you're around that as a player, it does make it so much easier to relate to guys and then manage those egos because you've seen it done during your playing days. And I think it just gives, especially LeBron James, it seems like he respects guys that were former players more. And I think that's interesting. Obviously
that's a great point too.
That wasn't the case with Spoelstra, but you've seen some of the coaches that he's kind of signed off on. I'm thinking Ty Lue and,
David
Blatt. I think he's someone that really believes in former players. And even when, they were looking at different coaches or there's been different, coaches mentioned, whenever there's a coaching search, it seems like he tends to go toward the former players. I think they should be able to develop a strong relationship, Luke and LeBron, and that's going to be so important too. Depending on how they hit it off, that's going to really set the tone and change things too. So we will see. This is going to be a very interesting year in Los Angeles. There's plenty to look at, dissect, speculate on. Obviously, we'll see what happens next in terms of all the Lakers moves. But thank you so much, Frank. I appreciate you jumping on and joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Alex.
Make sure you guys are all following Frank on Twitter at Frank Urbina _. Tomorrow, I'll be doing another episode of the HoopsHype Podcast with Sam Amick from USA Today Sports. We're going to discuss all of the free agents that are still on the market, different rumors that have come up, what different teams are trying to do. Tomorrow, we're going to do a rumor roundup podcast in the afternoon. Make sure you guys check out other episodes of the HoopsHype Podcast on iTunes, Audio Boom, Stitcher, anywhere your favorite podcast can be found. And until next time, thanks for listening.